some follow-up thoughts on the Porsche accident, which deserves follow-up thoughts because it sets up the conflict between Clark and Lex. At least at the beginning of the series, the main driving force between their conflict is Lex keeps trying to figure out what the heck happened there, and Clark keeps trying to get him to stop. Lex wants to know more, Clark wants him to know less. And it's interesting to consider this because the accident is a great example of how two very different people can experience the same event totally differently. Lex doesn't realize at first how different Clark is. He thinks they both experienced a near-death experience. But they didn't, did they? For Clark, it seems like the main part of this whole event was just him experiencing his alienness and him going through whatever he's going through in that episode of existential crisis or whatever. Why am I not normal? Why can't I just be normal? But for Lex, this was like, it was world-changing. Lex almost died himself, and then somebody saved him. Somebody saved his life. And he almost killed somebody, and somebody saved him from that too. First part of that is, I don't think Lex in his childhood and youth has had many experiences of somebody coming to save him. So that would have been monumental. Second, for a guy who experienced so traumatically the death of his little brother and blames himself for it, and for someone who demonstrates that he is inclined by nature and nurture to take responsibility, even in the extreme, even to a fault, I would say. He would be feeling even just the, I almost killed a kid, very deeply, probably even more deeply than him almost dying. And I think there's also, speaking of Julian, kind of a weird subconscious parallel here. So we find out he repressed the memories of what actually happened to Julian and blames himself instead. So he has this weird narrative in his mind that he killed Julian, but there's something kind of unsettling and shadowy about it because it's not real, it's a lie. And deep down he knows that it's a lie. And then this happens where he has this experience of saying, I could have sworn I killed you. I thought I just killed another kid, a young guy. And then he's not dead. Like, so you thought you did, but you didn't? Just like you thought you killed Julian, but you didn't? So on a practical level, Lex's experience of that accident would have just been a lot heavier than whatever Clark was experiencing. Because Clark knows he wasn't in any danger. He wouldn't have had any of that trauma to draw from. He just has his teenage angst. But then, on another level, I think Lex, just in general, he has a personality that is thinking bigger, seeing deeper things, seeing deeper meaning in things than Clark does. So remember the whole warrior angel thing? The comic book? This doesn't come up till later in the series, but we find out that it's in Stray, I think it first comes up, that episode, Stray, with the first one with Ryan in it. Lex is a major fan. Present tense. He was a major fan when he was a kid, and now as an adult, he's got, 2 copies of every comic book, right? He's got the one that for his collection, then he's got the one that he reads. Why are people drawn to these kinds of stories? I mean, we're here for the same reason Lex is reading those comic books, right? We're here watching Smallville for the same reason. The superhero stuff, this larger than life presentation of reality. It's fiction, but it's also very real in some ways. On a deeper level, it's very real. We know that villains are real. We know that heroes are real. We know that the monsters are real. We know that things aren't always what they seem. We know that people who seem average can end up being either terribly good or terribly evil. We know sometimes people conceal hidden power. These kinds of deep truths about reality, we see them in a very clear way in these superhero movies and TV shows and comic books. But I think this event, for Lex, that Clark, you and I almost died, but we were okay, and you saved my life. This is huge. This is, on a deeper level, this has to mean something, this was fated, this was destiny, Clark's like, yeah, totally, I don't want to answer any questions, and I wish you would just drop it. Of course, Lex is like, how could I possibly drop this? I'm never going to drop this. This is one of the biggest things that's ever happened to me in my life. How could you not see it as a big, important event that we should probe to the bottom, that we should get to the bottom, that we should both understand? Clark has, zero empathy, though, for Lex. He's only seeing it from his own perspective. He's not seeing any of this experience from Lex's perspective. So when Lex wants to keep finding out the truth of what happened, Clark just acts like he's somehow attacking him or he's personally being injured. There's no sympathy for, do you understand? This was a huge deal for Lex. He wants to understand this. He has a great drive to know the truth. Although even that, I don't think Clark has the same drive to know the truth. I think maybe if the tables were turned and Clark was in Lex's place, maybe Clark would just let it drop. I mean, Clark's the one in that episode who's acting like he's angsty because he just wants to be a normal, average teenager. He wants, he wants to be liked. He wants to be on the football team. He wants teenage romance. Like, those are the things he's thinking about. That's what he values. That's what he wants. Lex is thinking about big ideals and saving the world and epic friendship and deeper things, heavier things. But one difference, not in nature, but in nurture between Clark and Lex that I think contributes to this. Lex has suffered a lot more than Clark has in his life. And suffering, if there's a lot of like extreme suffering, I think it often can lead people to recognize, I don't know, the transient nature of life, that there's a lot of things that people act like are very important that maybe aren't quite as important as they think they are. And that can go one of two ways. That can turn into just hedonism, which it sounds like that was more what Lex was inclined to before the car accident when he was in Metropolis. Just kind of a nihilistic, nothing matters kind of attitude. Or, which is I think what we see after the accident, it can lead them to seek greater ideals. To seek importance beyond, as opposed to just the nihilistic approach of nothing matters. It's more like things do matter, but not for the reason you think. They matter for something even beyond what you're seeing in front of you. There's bigger reasons why they matter. Whereas Clark, who grew up surrounded by love and affection and comfort, he's putting a greater value on the small things, like being on the football team and being popular and being liked by the pretty girl. Side note, in the Talkville podcast episode on the pilot, where they talk about the car accident, Michael Rosenbaum says they had him for the underwater scene where Clark saves him. They had him underwater and they put him in the car, made him hold weights or something. They weighted him down so he was stuck in the car for this shot. I feel like I'm having a panic attack just if I think about that too long. No way, man! No way! Smallville, thanks you for your sacrifice. My last note on the Porsche accident is about the Superman foreshadowing. So obviously throughout the series, there's all these little hints and references that Clark Kent eventually becomes Superman, which I loved. I don't care if it was cheesy. I don't watch superhero movies and TV just to complain about cheesiness. I like it. I'm okay with a little cheesy. But my favorite in the whole series, to where I stopped, which is in the middle of season 6, my favorite bit of foreshadowing was in the pilot episode. And I can't find any image of it or any clip that has it in it. If I keep making these videos, I'm just going to have to buy the entire set on DVD so I can get it a clip by one. But because I don't have it, you're just going to have to go back and watch the pilot episode, and I'll just describe it to you now. And it's right after the Porsche accident where they've got EMTs, they're pulling Lex's car out of the water, and they've got them all wrapped up in like safety Red Cross blankets, those bright red blankets. And Jonathan shows up and yells at Lex, and then he gets Clark and they go home. And as Jonathan and Clark are walking away, Clark's like wrapped up in the blanket, and he's got his jacket on top of the blanket. And as he's walking away, the blanket is just like flapping in the wind behind him like a bright red cape. I thought that was so cool. That was like perfectly subtle, but like a nod to like the awesomeness of Superman. And I don't think they've ever topped it. I like the foreshadowing later in the series, but I don't think they've ever topped that bit of foreshadowing that was right there in the very first episode.